All right, let's hop in. So we have another fireside chat here at OpenSpace in the trade world. We have Cleveland Electric here today, which I'll give them an opportunity to introduce themselves in 1 second. Just wanted to give the audience a quick introduction of who OpenSpace is. I'm Josh. I oversee the trades team here at OpenSpace. OpenSpace is a reality capture group where we are in 360 automated documentation. So think 360 cameras, plop it on your helmet, and essentially click your starting point and start walking. And I'm going to let these guys talk more about when we do get into open space, how that process works. But it essentially creates a Google Street-like view of your projects, which you can work out of virtually. OpenSpace has been a group that's been around since 2017. With great customers like Cleveland, we have been able to capture over 51 billion square feet of space across the world. We're in 91 different countries with customers like we have here today with Cleveland and all across Europe, Asia, South America, and counting. So these are really fun. We get the opportunity to sit down with these groups who Cleveland, I believe, has been with us for almost 2 years. So want to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves and introduce Cleveland Electric.
Excellent. Appreciate it, Josh. My name's Andy Tolbert, and I'm a group manager here with Cleveland Electric.
Kevin Sloan, I'm with Cleveland Electric, project manager.
We both work in the mission critical division, really focused on data centers and mission critical type work. A couple of projects going on out of the Carolinas right now that we're focused on. Cleveland itself is based out of Atlanta, Georgia, been around for about 100 years. So you got a lot of history there, and that history can be good and bad both, right? So trying to change some things that have been embedded in the company for a long time can be difficult. But now we're at a point where technology is surpassing any of the other means and methods that we've used in the past to do things. We've been tried and true, and they're proving themselves. And what we need with technology at this point are ways to shore up the things that we are doing. This started with VDC and BIM, and it became used as a tool that we could use to plan our jobs. And then we started figuring out how to use this tool to the best of our abilities. As we go through that process, we say, well, it'd be great if we could do this. It'd be great if we could do that. And OpenSpace has kind of given us the resource to actually utilize BIM out in the field, doing comparisons of what's actually being installed to what has been designed to be installed, and kind of do a QA/QC thing where we can look and see where conduits are stubbing up, that type of thing, what's in the walls, what's not in the walls. So it really has been a great tool for us to kind of grow and keep developing. We use the VDC BIM to help with prefabrication. That's a big part of what we do now. It's a requirement almost on every single project that we do. And because of that, having these tools really help get that prefabrication stuff that's done offsite through our model installed correctly is imperative. So we're always looking for resources, tools, means, and methods to help grow on the technology that we currently have adopted and helping us, make that a little bit better.
I love that. And you made a point in there. So Cleveland's been around for 100 years, and there's recently been some change, right, with adopting technology. Can you tell us more about how that experience has been and what it's been like getting a company that's been around for so long, that's gone through so many changes in construction, and how you got to where you guys are today?
Our field supervision is extremely strong. These folks really know what they're doing. They know how to do it. So whenever you come and say, hey, we've got this thing that we need to try, it's usually received with skepticism, right? It's like, well, okay, I'm used to doing it this way, right? But what it's done is it's really proven these guys that these are valuable tools, they're valuable assets to help them do their job better. And as they've adopted it, and it's great to see our field supervisors in a model, out on the job site with, large screen TVs and laptops plugged in within data vaults that are surfing through the model. And then, like you say, pulling up something like OpenSpace next to that to kind of look at where we are and what we're doing. that's when they say, you know what, this tool does add value. It does help us do our jobs better. And then that skepticism quickly turns around to saying, what else can we do? What else can we look for? How can we make this a little bit better? And you see a guy out there walking around in his hard hat with a camera on top of it, and the guy's going to poke at him a little bit and say,
it looks like a unicorn.
Yeah, here comes our unicorn today.
But here recently, they asked the unicorn, "Hey, can you pull up some of those captures that you got from last week? We got a conduit we want to look at that was buried in the ground. We just want to check something out real quick." And actually, we're able to use the tool on multiple different occasions to be able to go back and verify and validate what was installed, be able to go back and capture any activities, schedule-based related, start duration, finish durations. It's helped us out in so many different ways. And the guys now see that in the field as a tool. So whenever they go back and say, well, I have 45 days in the schedule to get this done, but they're saying I need to be done tomorrow. I go back and say, well, we weren't ready to start until about 15 days ago. And then we could show that case and plead our case to general contractors or, and try to work out and come meet in the middle at some point, So it's definitely has proved its value. It's worth its weight in gold, that little camera, I tell you.
Yeah, it's funny you said that because it's typically a pushback we'll get on an initial demo of like a guy in the field saying, I'm not going to wear that. And my response is, you're going to be embarrassed the first time until somebody asks you to bring up the captures in a meeting, and you will like control that conversation. Yeah. And then every time we get the response, we're hearing from you, Kevin, on like, now they love it because they're controlling the conversation. They're able to quickly find that capture and not spend hours looking for a photo.
That's correct.
So
what first won them over, just a quick story. We had some underground that we had that's installed in the concrete duct bank, and we had some design changes. The owner came in and said, hey, let's do some changes. Let's do this. It means we needed to add some conduits to that duct bank. And it's like, well, how are we going to go about this? So Kevin could pull up from everything when the conduits were going into the ground to when they were installed to when concrete was poured. So you could see visually and put it together. And from that, the crew was able to go through and say, this is how we're going to attack it. And this is how we're going to get this next piece done. And it was at that point right there, everyone said, all right.
It was total buy-in.
Yeah.
It was total buy-in all the way across the board.
I love it. Tell me more about, so it kind of bringing it high level. What is some of the strategy Cleveland Electric has on the technology front coming into 2023? So you kind of touched on it a bit with really bringing together VDC, the field team with tools like OpenSpace. What other technologies are you seeing being adopted? How are they working with OpenSpace? What does that strategy look like? And what are you guys really seeing in the field that's being effective?
Related to this, it really does kind of go back to VDC and BIM, and you see a lot of software coming out. You see plugins coming out. You say, all right, this is great. This is great. And you start pulling all this stuff in, right? And you're so excited, you pull it in and give it a try. And then you think, well, I've never really looked at what we have and how it marries with the new software coming in. And so then you kind of take a step back and ask that very question, where are we going? What's our end result here that we're looking for? And when you start doing that, you say, okay, how can we build on the processes that we've now adopted? And really everything comes down to efficiencies and productivity, right? And so, you've got this great model, you've got everything coordinated in the model. Now we're getting real-time captures to go back against the model and offer multiple uses of advantages for us. And then we start saying, well, how do we get our bill of material out of this? And how do we create these different reality captures into our closeout documents? And so you start looking at how to piece all that together from A to Z to give you an ultimate product. And right now we are in that process of kind of going through and then looking at several different types of software that are out there. For a while, I think most people were trying to do a one-stop shop. Hey, I'm going to go use this project management software with the financial module, and I'm going to have this great product. Or I'm going to get this financial software with the project management module and have this great product. But now you go back through and, like I say, revamp it and start using the software for the tools that it has, and then look at how those software works together. So a lot of that would be conversations with you, OpenSpace, going, what are you looking at? Who are you working with? How does this work with other types of software to help us do our jobs better? So it's through those partnerships and continued conversations to continually go out there and mine for information to find out what that next best thing is coming down the line.
Yeah, because I think we're at the top of our technology as far as like our modeling right now. It's just taking that information that we actively have and being able to marry it to these other softwares, like Andy was just saying, is like, for instance, if it could marry to a software like I know you guys do like the sheetrock count, where you know, we could start marrying in where it starts doing devices, if it can capture conduit racks, trays, hangers, etc., advancing the technology within the software itself.
Mhm. In regards to using the reality capture within OpenSpace to compare against the BIM model, it sounds like that has been a very effective tool for you. What was it like before that? What was your process like? And what was the journey like to get where you guys are today? And you touched on it a bit on getting your field team excited, but like, what was that process like before? Because in a lot of the conversations we have, especially trades, they're hesitant to adopt technology, especially new technology, and bring that to the field. What was that like for you guys?
In a situation like the duct bank, we would have, you know, gotten the back truck out there and cleaned the area out and got out some jackhammers and popped open the concrete to look at what we have to figure out how we're going to do things. And so you're building a plan after you've exposed the work that's already installed. So now we're proactive, right? You know, we're not reactive. We're building that plan before we open the ground back up again to know how we're going to attack something. So really the process before was to look at what you've installed, to come up with a solution the best that you can, and then to start working your way through it. And as you work your way through it, you run into problems. And then you get the team together, you talk about, hey, we opened this up, we found this, we thought it was going to be this, but it's not that. So let's pivot. Now we got to do this instead of what we had planned to do. And so it leaves you really reactive to the risks that are out there, where now we can, you know, uncover what those risks are, come up with risk mitigation plans against those potential items, and just go about it more efficiently. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I love that. So what from I always like asking this question. What's the biggest challenges you guys are seeing this year in construction?
Quicker, faster, cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, outside of material delivery, right? I mean,
yeah,
you know, when everything from gear to medium voltage cable to whatever's out there right now that we need to purchase, there's some kind of an issue with everything that we're purchasing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So being able to get a faster look at what we're going to need, when we're going to need, that goes back to that bill of material, right? If you can pull that out of the model, marry that stuff together with the components that you have, and be able to purchase sooner to get those things coming, again, it helps you mitigate that piece of risk as opposed to waiting. You know, typically as a contractor, if you're going to order a wire, you like to go out and get your conduit in the ground. You like to get something through there to measure. You get some mule tape with measuring links on there. You say, okay, I got 1,000 foot of cable that I'm going to need. Now I go order it. Well, that's no longer really an option that we have because the lead times are so extensive. So that's a huge one that we've been navigating through, you know, really since COVID hit. And we had several issues with different manufacturing facilities, from being fires to shutdowns and things like that. They were affected by all that across the board. You know, next, you know, the type of buildings that we construct, when you're looking at, you know, hyperscale type data centers and the amount of resources of people that it takes to build these, you know, it has changed the face of electrical construction, you know, where you used to, you know, you'd go out and build some projects and you would do, you know, you'd have 30 million here, 50 million there, that kind of thing. And all of a sudden you're building multiple $100 million projects. And not only are you doing that, but so many other contractors around you are doing that. And you're all doing it within similar regions. So you're out there trying to figure out, how do you pull these people in to actually be able to build the job, which pushes us back to software and technology, right? Because now it's, how can we build things offsite? How do we take that labor and we shift it left? You know, when we're going to be at peak on a job site, well, we were going to be at peak on a job site at the same time these other 3 job sites were at peak. So now you're trying to move that manpower curve, and you're trying to get it down a little bit, move some of that labor left So you can go ahead and build that off-site in a controlled setting and then have that ready to install at some other point later in time. And when you do that, it reduces your overall manpower count on a job site. So, it's just having the people to build the jobs, having the material on time to build the jobs have really been our two biggest hurdles recently, based on, the climate that we have around material and the amount of large projects going on all over the country right now.
Mm-hmm. That is a common theme I hear. Can you tell us more about how you're mitigating that risk? Like, what do you mean by like moving it to the left?
So you take specific tasks. Let's say like if you're doing underground on a job site, you can take all those duct banks, which is is a collection of conduits that are put together in one assembly. So you may have, let's say you've got 12 or 16 conduits in an assembly together. And typically you would build that on a job site, which we call stick building, right? Materials delivered to a job site. You get all these parts and pieces that you put together on the job site itself, which underground is typically muddy, right? You're going to have rain, sunshine, you're fighting the weather all the time. You're down in these
water
these
elevation
ditches. Yeah, you're fighting water all the time. And you're building these things piece by piece by piece in the field.
One stick at a time.
So now we take this, and when I say shift it left, it's taking it, let's say that if we started a job in January and it's going to be a 12-month project, and we know we're going to hit peak in month 6, and that's when we're going to be at our highest manpower on the job site. So if we have a peak of 250 people, well, if we do this work and we start moving these activities left, I can take work that I'm supposed to do in June and I can move it over here to March or April and build it off site with people that I have in a controlled facility in a manufacturing setting that can then build that. And so now you're going to take that, and then they're going to take all those parts and pieces, all those small things, they're going to put them together in what we call like an assembly, which would be a finished product. And say in a duct bank, you would have 20-foot lengths of conduit that are all straight runs. Your 9s would be put together in a welded rack that you could all put the piece together on. And then you're going to move those to the job site. And now you're building that with, let's say, 6 people instead of 18 people. So you're moving that labor around to different parts of the project when you're not at peak. I'm taking my peak labor, I'm moving it back over here to an earlier part of the project. And now I'm building it off peak, so that gives me more resources to do what I need to do.
Interesting. Is there a place within that process that OpenSpace is helping you mitigate that risk?
I think it is, and how the products are being installed. I mean, what do you think, Kev?
Yeah, I mean, as far as how it gets installed and the understanding of it during the installation, like we were talking about earlier, for an example, on the duct banks, being able to go back. So essentially what I did was I did a whole site plan for my first capture on OpenSpace, and was able to get my points and everything lined up through your QA/QC department. They did a phenomenal job too, by the way. And we were able to actually map out where all of our duct banks were on the project. So, and in doing so, I was able to capture what we were getting done and the time that we were getting it done to understand that bell curve of manpower.
Be able to put coordinates into a model and use those coordinates for layout, and then using those same coordinates to plug into something like OpenSpace, where you can compare the model to what's happening in real time and do a side-by-side comparison. It lets you know how things are off and what kind of adjustments need to be made. So our biggest fear is that we're going to be off somewhere, and we're going to have to go and, let's say that we're 9 feet deep in the ground because we have to miss all these other things that are in the ground also. And so we get 9 foot down, it's buried in concrete. And then if you were to have to make a change later and open the ground up to do that after potentially being underneath concrete, it's very expensive, right? It hurts big time. And so giving more tools and more resources to a way to have checks and balances to give you that assurance that you're right and be able to make those adjustments before you get to that part where there's concrete on the ground gives you that flexibility and confidence to go out and say, yes, we can do this. Yes, we can make this happen because we have this, and this as tools to help us get there. An open space.
That touches on that proactive measure you were talking about. What tools can we adopt that allows us to be more proactive, prevent and mitigate these major risks that have traditionally been very expensive. So in that point, and I think this is a good segue into if you have a project, we can bring up and we can walk through kind of what that experience looks like for Cleveland and you on a daily basis with an OpenSpace.
Sure.
So as they're pulling that up, tell us a little bit about the project and what we're going to be looking at.
So this project is called a cable landing station. So similar to a data center, but what we're doing is bringing in fiber from other countries into the Atlantic coast and then moving that fiber through the Southeast to an end designation. So you're bringing in some countries from South America and also from Europe and bring them into this facility, and then again moving that over to other areas within the Southeast. So very similar to a data center, but a little different when it's more focused on the communication side of things. I'm limited in what I can say to a certain extent.
Yeah. Looks like we got, is that Cole in there?
That is Cole.
That's Cole. That's great.
The initial pose.
Yeah, that is for the audience. Cole is Cleveland Electric's account executive. They've been working together for a number of years. And that's just great and funny to see in there.
So this is kind of when we first got on the project. Cole was kind of giving us a demonstration on how the whole OpenSpace work, how everything linked up. He gave me about a 5-minute rundown, and really he could have probably done it in 3. That's how easy it was to get going with OpenSpace. As you see, we're still working on some coordinates. Being it was the first capture, we just uploaded, so you'll see like some of the coordinates up here a little off on our first couple trial runs of it. But as the project progressed, you'll see that we were able to take and get additional captures. This place was so wet for so long. This is what we were talking about. When you got guys working in stuff like this, they don't want to go back and work in it twice. It's never fun, right? It was never fun the first time. It ain't going to be any fun the second time.
One thing to add real quick too, as some of you know that use the software itself, what Kevin's doing right now is he goes to the bottom of the page, he's clicking on the calendar, right? So what that's going to do is whatever date he picks, it's going to bring up an image from that same area location as he's done his walks over time. Yeah. So you can sit there and flip from week to week, month to month on your project and see from that exact spot how things have changed.
And or the closest capture to it if it's not directly over the top of that same donut. And I'm calling these little blue dots little donuts. So we can fast forward a little bit. Let's see. So here's some of our underground that we were working on. Another thing you can do is you can come over here, and once you open up your map, it kind of shows you everywhere you walked at. So you can come, you can click, and actually select the location that you're trying to look into. You can be able to navigate it that way as well. Let me get to where our model actually started lining up with everything. So whenever I start my typical walk off, I start right here at the same door every time. It's a 1-story facility. So I start right here at the main entrance.
And what is the process like for starting a capture? Can you walk us through that?
So yeah, so whenever I walk out of my trailer right here, by the time I'm halfway, I'm already set up and I'm ready to go. So I put my camera on my hard hat. I cut it on. It gives you an indication sound that it has been turned on. Then I just go to the OpenSpace app. I cut it on. I connect to my camera. It automatically syncs to my Wi-Fi. Once you get your password and everything put in there after your first initial. And then it's just a matter of selecting a location on your drawing. And this is where I typically select, right here at the beginning of this entry right here. I hit it and I hit capture. I mean, all of 30 seconds, you're ready to start taking captures. And then, as you're walking through, so we have our BIM model that we can pull up as side-by-side comparisons. So essentially, this is the corridor that you'd be walking down. Walls got built going down here. This is what it looks like. I'm a limit to the spaces that we go into just for privacy protection purposes. But we can walk to the outside of the building.
So when you have this up, tell us more about when you're using this, why you're using it.
Okay, yeah. So for an example, we can come right here to this corridor. And so if we were to go a little later on into the project, so here we go. So what I can do here is you can see all my cable tray that I have up. You can see all my supports that are running through. I have 2 tiers of tray. I can also take and I can hide different attributes. And I could start looking through and making sure that other trades. So if my guys are coming into me and they're saying, hey, I can't get this tray up because there's a sprinkler line in the way. I'm like, all right, well, let's go take a look at it. So I'll take my tablet out there. It's a little more user friendly to look at than the cell phone. But I'll take the tablet out there and we'll pull up the 3D model. We'll pull it up. We'll pull up OpenSpace. I'll see what we have installed versus what they have installed and versus what's in the model. And it can either go one of 2 ways. Hey, we need to come down a little bit in our elevation. We'll be clear. All right, we're Johnny on the spot. The sprinkler guy is absolutely in the wrong place. So then, it's a conversation with the sprinkler guy or general contractor, and we get the issue resolved. And it's a I like to call this more like the one-stop shop. You can go in there. You can navigate around. You can even take and unlock it over here, and you can kind of drive through these different areas right here if you like. And you can come on through and you continue to walk. So, I mean, it's not necessarily that you have to take and, be side by side with the model. You can be in one central location and talk about anywhere in the building that you like.
Another value of this too is, let's say you're working with the GC and a corridor like this is extremely valuable real estate. There's so many things that are going down that corridor. And so it's always a coordination of space for installation that is always a point of contention. And so, we've had some issues with some folks moving a little slower, not having access to an area, and they'll come to us and say, hey, we need you to get started. And we'll say, we can't right now, and this is why. And so then you can pull up the model, and you can also pull up the pictures right next to it, the reality captures right next to it. And the advantage of what that does, if you look at the model, you see what's going to be there, right?
That's right.
You say, this is everything. So you can point at the sprinkler line up there. You can point at the duct work that's up there and say, this stuff needs to be done. But what you can do now with the reality capture is you can say, this is what I took yesterday when I was walking the site. So you can look at that and say, none of this is installed. And then you can have that as a backup documentation that ultimately can get embedded into your contract documents to help say, on this day, on this time, I couldn't have access to this area of the project. So this is why, here's what needs to be there before we can do our work, and here's what's actually there on that date and time.
And prime example right here, we wouldn't want to run all this tray and close up all this real estate for all this work and activity, duct work, sprinkler, water, above our tray, right? So like you said, it's definitely a coordination tool, being able to go out there and say, hey, this is what was installed. You guys are saying that you need this done by the end of next week. It shows I had 2 weeks in my schedule. And really, we haven't even gotten started because the real estate hasn't been available to us to install. You still have trades in that area working that need to be completed before we go in there and close them off.
So many other times they'll tell you, well, that work is already done. I talked to that contractor. They said they're finished. And that's when you pull up the reality capture from yesterday and say, no, it's not. And, because what you're doing is you're banking on your time, right? That contractor is saying, well, I'm going to be done soon, so I'm going to go ahead and let them know that I'm done, right? But what it does is it causes conflicts, but that using as a resource to go ahead and say, I know what they told you, but here is an image right now of what's installed and what's not installed.
I know traditionally those conversations, from what I've heard, can get pretty heated, right? There's a lot of finger pointing. there's a lot of trying to dig up, photos in a folder with 1,000 different photos in there.
Yeah.
And you touched on it a few points. You brought up the GC, you brought up another trade. Like how has this changed the way you've had conversations with other, trades and your customer? Like have you physically seen it improve the relationships?
Absolutely. I mean, I've even taken out into the field and had conversations with the plumbers. Maybe they didn't model their condensating lines and they ran something right where a rack of my conduits may be, or where I may have a box on a wall or something of that nature. And I take it over and I say, hey, I think we got a conflict right here. And he said, oh, let me take a look at what you're looking at. And I show him, and he'll say, yep, man, you're absolutely right. He said, I'll get a guy right on it and we'll get it taken care of. No worries.
And it takes the debate out of the discussion. It now becomes a discussion with facts and images. And so you're no longer debating, I think it was this day, I think it was this time, I think this is when they had it done. Now you just pull up the calendar, click on that day, and you show this is exactly what was installed on that day.
That's right.
And that is extremely valuable information, which, like you say, reduces contention on the job site and helps us focus on building the job. And that's the key here. We're all here to build a successful project. Everyone wants the same thing. We just have a few different angles we're approaching it as. And so something like this reduces that discussion as far as the debate in the discussion and lets you just move forward with building the project.
That's the key piece right there, right? I spoke with a guy the other day who said a similar issue, kind of like what you were walking through, came up with the plumber. He spent the entire weekend trying to find the exact photo to prove his point, just so they can proceed with the project, right? That's the whole just so they can carry on. And so it's soft costs like those that make technology like this so effective in just moving forward, right? Having those effective conversations, because you can't push back against this. This is the reality, right?
Here's a really good example. The model showed 2 televisions on the wall right here. But there was never any power requirements for that wall. So as we're going through the model and I'm looking through these rooms, I'm like, we don't have any power on this wall. So then I go back to the electrical drawings and sure enough, it doesn't call for any power on the wall. And I mean, there's clearly 2 televisions there. So then when that strikes an RFI, we ask the question, and come to find out the design team forgot them out of the drawing. So we were able to catch it in time. And like Andy said, it's being able to be proactive instead of reactive. And now we're cutting open walls because the TVs are here and they're ready to hang on the wall, So it's just been a really powerful tool, and it's been a joy using it and having it on this job site.
On this example, do you use the field notes? Like when you see something like this, are you using the field notes to capture?
I use field notes. I have done some field notes. I probably don't use as much field notes on this here, because at the end of the day, Cleveland is really the only one looking at this internally. What I do is we have another software that we utilize between general contractor and EC. And we have a software in there where we present RFIs and submit that type of information. So I mean, it's just a matter of taking a notebook out, jotting down a couple notes, and going on about it.
I think the field is very valuable, and it is a matter of getting OpenSpace adopted on the project as a whole. And saying this is what we're using. This is going to be that tool that we use to go out and identify any potential issues on the job site. We can resolve those within there. But there are ways that we can use field notes even without that scenario that are valuable.
I've used them where other contractors had damaged some of our conduits early on in the project. I was able to go in there because once you do the field note, you have a timestamp picture at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So at that point there, I was able to actually extract it out and send it over to the general contractor. I mean, I think it had time, date, weather. I think it had a load of everything on it.
Can you show us? Do you have an example in this project?
I could pull up a field now. I'd have to generate a new one. Let's see.
You click the left bar. I think I saw one back on one of the dates, the field note little tab right there on the left bar up, right under the folder. field, yeah, where it says field notes on the bottom. There we go.
Yeah, so I had taken some field notes of some damaged conduit or some damaged temporary power.
Large
right
So
here.
you can see the image itself. You can see the location, the drawing to the right of it. So it puts all that together to give you perspective of where you're talking about and what the actual image is.
Mm-hmm. And then once we had some owner-furnished equipment that came in, I was able to take pictures of some serial numbers that were associated with it. When they started doing pouring concrete on the roof, I was able to get some captures of that for schedule purposing. Here's some more damaged conduit. I took a picture of that. Again, like Andy was saying, it shows you exactly where it is on the notes. I mean, on your drawing. Put a note in there, 2-inch conduit damaged. Concrete prepping and grading. That was essentially, just stuff that I made note of in regards to start dates of scheduling.
In regards to so one of the biggest challenges, we hear, as a software group is in construction is there's hesitation on if the field team is going to adopt it. And I know we spoke on that a bit in the beginning, but can you tell us more about what your field team finds most valuable in OpenSpace and where they're really using this the most?
I would say that our field team leans on me whenever it comes down to being able to go back and getting historical facts in regards to the project, whether it be via schedule, via, in-wall rough-ins, maybe some drywall had covered up an outlet or something. Being able to go back and say, hey, Kev, did we get that installed? And it's more of a checks and balance after, we've done QA, QC to be able to go back in there and utilize this tool to be able to go in there and see, yeah, it was in there. I have documentation right here. It was roughed in. It was roughed in on this date right here. It looks like sheetrock went up this week right here. You can see where they clearly covered it.
This project here this is the first time a lot of our field supervision have been exposed to OpenSpace. And so you can see where it's going to go. You can see how it's going to be adopted more and more into their daily life and how they use it. And so that's right now, when you start out with that, you go with the low hanging fruit, right? These are the things that they're going to get the most value out of. And then as they see that value, then that's when they start to explore and say, oh, we can do this. It can do this. I like this. Let's start using it for that too. As opposed to pushing everything of all the capabilities within the software itself on day one, then you're gonna run into some issues, right? And there's so many capabilities within the software that I can see over time, everyone adopting and starting to utilize, but it is a step-by-step process in that software adoption method out there.
So you work with Cole Brewer and you work with Wesley, correct? Wesley DeVos?
Correct, yeah.
So I love your approach to, we're not going to force it on them and just push everything on them at once. We're going to have a method to it, right? And how has that experience been with Wesley and Cole and essentially kind of the OpenSpace team you have? What has that experience been like with training, with onboarding? Can you tell the audience your experience with that partnership?
Cole and Wesley are awesome. I tell you, as soon as you mentioned their names, if you notice, I immediately lit up. Cole is hands down an awesome guy. He's always been available, always there to help out, no matter what it is.
Passionate about what it does.
Very passionate, very passionate. Wesley, any issues that I had the one coordination issue with how it was laid out on the page. North was going south, south was going north. Man, he had that thing fixed less than 24 hours. Anytime you call them, they're always responsive. It's not a 24-hour lag before you get a phone call back. It's either an immediate conversation or text, hey, I'm on the phone or whatever. And they get right back to you. I mean, your team, hands down, that we've dealt with here has just been 10 out of 10.
They've done a great job with the training side of things. I mean, typically when we expose people to OpenSpace within the company, you're going to have the majority of people see value and they're going to like it right away. Again, there's so many capabilities within it. They're going to see certain ones that appeal to them where they can say, I was in this situation before and that would have helped me. And so as you go through the training aspect of it, it really helps expose those different parts and pieces of the software to everyone so that they can see the different pieces of value that would be beneficial for them to have. And I think that really helps people adopt it a lot faster.
And I also have used this tool. You made me think of something. So we have subcontractors on site that do our VDC system. And so I added them to be able to view the project. And in doing so, you know, you have a guy that may be overseeing this project. The project manager may be in Atlanta. His workers are in Myrtle Beach. He now can see progress updates as to what's going on. And as I add them to be able to view this, they can go in there anytime and say, okay, well, ceiling grid's in now. And then that triggers them. Well, we need to be in there next so we can start dropping tiles and cutting in our devices. So, I mean, we've utilized it that way as well. And our fire sprinkler team, they love it.
It decrease your daily incoming phone constantly.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, is this ready? Hey, when is this going to be ready? They'll go right there to OpenSpace. They'll take a look at it. They'll say, hey, Kev, I see that we got the ceiling grid in. When are you about ready? Well, we got overhead inspections in 2 weeks. So you got a 1 week window or 3 weeks or whatever it is, you know? So, yeah, no, it's definitely been beneficial in that aspect as well.
Yeah, it's creating efficiencies. And that's the purpose of technology. And I love that you guys are seeing that, especially with OpenSpace. That makes me happy. And I love hearing, you know, the stories of Cole and Wesley. Wesley, I mean, the reason he always responds so quickly is because he understands the pain better than anybody else of what you guys are going through, because he's been through it. You know, he was in the field. And then Cole's just inherently a passionate dude. So he's quick to jump on any call and make sure things are going well for you guys. I know he loves working with you.
Yeah. You have a great team.
Cool. Last question. If you had our products here, and I know we've actually sat you guys down with our product team before to give them feedback and direction. That's something we do here often. As you've been exploring OpenSpace and using it, what is one area you would love to see OpenSpace either improve, add on to make OpenSpace more effective for you and your team?
Productivity tracking.
Definitely.
Yeah, tell us more about that.
So I guess we witnessed it through what you can do, as Kevin mentioned earlier, in your sheetrock side of things, right? So you have the ability as you do your daily walks and you're doing the reality capture to actually be able to quantify how much sheetrock is being installed. And so that kind of comes back and gives you where you can work on percent complete and that type of thing. If that could be carried into the electrical side of things, and I think Kevin mentioned that also with the trapeze work that we do. So that'd be overhead conduit racks, even the underground conduit that we install. If it could go into being able to capture that information to give us feedback on that would be massive. A lot of these projects, we do earned value management. And when you're doing earned value, you are coming up with a number that's giving you a percent complete. And then you're looking at that against what your data tells you. And so this just really gives you a chance, as opposed to going out looking at it and saying, we're about 60% complete. It would give you a more defined result that could be closer to what reality is as opposed to what you think it is. And that's valuable. That's very valuable.
Yeah. And that reality is not far away. I know Cleveland has already played around with our production tracker, which we called Track. Cleveland was actually one of the first electrical groups to use our drywall tracker. I don't know if that was your team or one of the other teams.
It's one of our
it's not a reality that's far off, where companies like Cleveland and other electrical groups will soon be able to track those items. It's really exciting because you guys have been here from the beginning with when we started the trades team here at OpenSpace and got very serious about, you know, working with trades. I know you guys have been on the forefront of providing feedback, which has been really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, we were able to use the sheetrock tracking to help us gauge our productivity as well. So it was, for us, it became a check and balance, right? It wasn't dialed into our specific work, but it was a check and balance to say, if this much sheetrock is done, then this is where we are. And then you could have, more intelligent conversations with other contractors, the general contractor, that type of thing.
Yeah. It's only going to get better. It's exciting, guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your time, man. This was fun.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
We appreciate you having us.
Of course. All right, guys. We'll connect soon.
Appreciate it.
All right. Bye.